Can you hear me okay, Deborah?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Well, with the audience tonight, I just want to, many of you guys in the audience, you've met Deborah before, who I affectionately call my sweet Deborah, for many years. And we've known each other for many years. And you've been on the show a few times in the past, and we've talked about some things. And this is one of those shows that I'm just calling Love, Life, and Loss. And you have a story, a little bit of a story to tell, and then we'll get into some other things. But you had mentioned about wanting to get the message out, and I had posted something about William Shatner, who married a woman who was an alcoholic, and he tried and tried and tried and tried to straighten her out. And one day he came home and she was at the bottom of the pool, and he recalls the conversation he had with Leonard Nimoy, everybody knows as Mr. Spock, and said, I'm going to marry this woman. And Leonard Nimoy said, it's going to be a hard life. He says, yeah, but I love her. And at that point, that really, really made me think of your situation. And so without any further ado, I would like to introduce Deborah to the audience, Deborah Twist, and everybody. Just welcome, Deborah, and we're so happy to have you here, Deborah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Well, tell us the latest chapter in your story.
My husband of 21 years passed away in his sleep on Sunday, April 30th. And he was only 59. He was a fun drinker back when I met him in 99, and nothing seemed too crazy until after we got married, and then it got more intense. And I went to a couple of his friends and I begged them to help me because we had a baby on the way. And the one guy said to me, "You knew who he was when you married him. You have no right to complain." And I was like, "Wait, what?" So, I shut my mouth, and then I waited a little longer. It got worse. And then I talked to his mom, and I said, please, I really need him present. And, I don't think people can drink and smoke. He smoked a lot too. And do these kind of things and actually survive. And she said that he had never been like that before. And it was probably my fault because I was probably too demanding and it was too stressful for him. Now, anybody that knows me knows I am not that kind of girl. I am not into, I don't think I've ever actually been on vacation unless it's like, something for a film shoot. I don't care. Like, to me,
you are one of the most easygoing human beings I know.
Thank you. And that's why, like, a lot of times with, your posts about women and everything, I'm like, that's mostly American women. Most American women. That's why I don't have many American women friends, because they're mostly like really shallow, psycho bitches that just, look at a man as like, a wallet. And it's pathetic. And I've always hated it. So, and I think that's one of the reasons, like, Dean, his name was Dean, why he first was so enamored by me, because, I was really low maintenance. It's like, I love animals and kids and being outside and fresh air. I'm like an overgrown, third grader. Like, just, put me outside with some animals to run around and give me some water and a couple meals, and I'm great. I don't need very much at all. So it was very, we had a really beautiful beginning, but also a little bit of a sad one, because, as I was witnessing the unraveling and I was asking people to help, nobody would help. Nobody. Or they would turn it around and they'd say that it was my fault, Or like this one guy, you know, I asked, like, you know, why would he prefer to drink over, you know, be affectionate with me? I was pregnant with my second daughter, my second child, who was my daughter. Guys, shut up. Della. Of course, they didn't put the other dog downstairs. I can't believe it. This guy said to me, in reference to like why my husband didn't want to be affectionate with me when I was 8 months pregnant, even though he preferred drinking. The guy said to me, well, look at you. Why would anyone want you? I was like, that's a real asshole thing to say. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, you know, the people that were around were kind of like bad and hardcore. Luckily, I had a very good friend who has re-entered my life recently, Patty Powers. We'd known each other throughout the 90s. Sorry, there's so much always going on in my house. And she is a recovering addict. I think she's been sober now for like 35 years. But she was actually on this TV show about intervention. I think it was called Intervention. She was like one of the sober coaches.
That sounds right.
Okay, cool. But she's really cool. And that she's been doing that now for many years, like probably 15 or 20 years. She's been a sober coach. So as I got deeper into the marriage and, you know, the drinking started to escalate and the kids were starting to get older, I consulted with my friend Patty. And Patty was the only person that actually gave me good guidance. She was like, you need to go to Al-Anon. You need to read, you know, books about boundaries. You need to like take care of yourself. You need to make sure you're not like, you know, hiding this from your kids. So I did all the things and I kept doing all the things. And the part of this that was so sad is that I was losing friends because many friends, I would tell them what was going on. And I was like, I need help. I don't know what to do. And they're like, well, leave him. I'm like, well, but he's not beating us. He doesn't hurt the kids. He doesn't speak badly to us. Nothing. There's nothing bad. He's just self-abusive. And you know, they were like, oh, well, that's exactly like what an abused woman would say. I'm like, but I'm not an abused woman. I'm not. He's abusing himself, and I'm trying to save him. And if I leave, he's going to be dead within 30 days. He will pull a Nicolas Cage and leaving Las Vegas. I know that for a fact. And I know that I'm right. I know it. And I'm glad that I trusted my instincts, because had I left and that happened while I was, you know, in those first few weeks of like leaving him, I mean, I would never get over that guilt ever. And my kids, like, how would they look at me? You know, I just, and it's really important to me. I guess it wasn't even a few months ago, I posted on Facebook that one day I'm going to tell the truth about everything. And I couldn't while he was here because, you know, so many people were whiny or, you know, oh, how dare you sully his name. And I'm like, I'm trying to save his life. I was trying to save his life. I was begging people for help. Nobody, like, I even told friends, mutual friends, I was like, just come to my house and visit him. You know, he's living in the basement apartment because he's trying to self-isolate. He wants to like just be left alone to do his thing. And, you know, I feel like if he has some sort of contact with the outside world, maybe that can help. I don't know. And people were just like, you're just probably, you know, exaggerating. You're an actress. So, and I'm like, why would I exaggerate about things like this? Why? So it was very, I mean, I ended up isolating out of shame and guilt and like all these people telling me that I was doing the wrong thing when I was just following my heart. And I was like, this is the guy that, you know, when he rescued me from a very narcissistic, bad relationship I'd been in where the guy wouldn't let me audition, made me act. I mean, to this day, he's like, oh, so you think you're a director? Oh, so you think you're a screenwriter? It's like very, very demeaning. But Dean was always like, I know you are amazing. You are a force of nature. And if you set your mind to something, you can do it. I believe in you. I mean, even with the kids and all the animals we have, he called me Mary Poppins. He was like, you're just like Mary Poppins or Julie Andrews, or just like, you know, the fantasy for like animals and kids. I mean, he was just so sweet. And even like a few days before he passed, he said to me, because I'd done all this stuff, like he'd gotten fired from his job and I helped get all the pension together for him, like the paperwork and all that kind of stuff. And then I was able to get him on disability, which like all these lawyers were calling and telling me, oh, I could never do it. And I'm like, screw you. I'm going to do it anyway, because I'm not going to pay you to do this thing when I've got, thousands of pages of documentation. This guy had been in and out of the hospital for 6 years, 8 times. Like there were literally, I think, 33,000 pages in the PDFs I sent to disability. So I got that done in 6 months. That stopped the day he died, immediately gone. And he had no life insurance policy or anything like that. So it's pretty much a crazy moment. But the week before he passed, I'd been able to actually save the house. There was $97,000 in back taxes that were due. I drained the retirement accounts to pay for that, drained it to pay for the kids' schools, all this stuff. It was like, so, but 4 days before he left, he said to me, he was like, I am so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. You've completely saved this family. And, all the great things that you're doing in film, this is all going to come back, and you're on your way. This next chapter in your life is going to be the best you've ever lived. And I just want you to know how proud I am of you. And it was so, that was the thing that he always did. He always knew the right thing to say. Like, even if, he was more married to the bottle than to me, he was my best friend, and he was my brother in a way. And even right now, like, I have dreams about him almost every night, and he comes and he asks me questions about stuff and all kinds of cool things. Like, I'm a big believer in the afterlife and parallel realities and crazy things like that, and he never believed. And this really cool guy that he knew from high school reached out to me the day after Dean passed and said, hi, my name's Robbie Litt. I knew Dean back at Packer, and I moved to California 35 years ago, and I've been doing a lot of things in the spiritual world, and I communicate with the other side. So if you're open to that. And I was like, yes, that's like, I live for that. I mean, it's like In Search Of was my favorite thing when I was a little kid. And, Ancient Aliens is my thing now. And, anything that's like metaphysical or paranormal, it's like all the things I'm about. So the guy told me about how when Dean first lifted out of his body, he thought he was just dreaming. And then he realized that it was real, and he was done, and he was leaving. And he wanted so badly for this guy to come and tell me that everything that I talked about was real. And he was like, yeah, he just wanted to give me the thumbs up that it's great and it's amazing. And he's so happy that he finally has the proof that he was looking for. Because he always would say to me that, unless he sees evidence, he can't believe. And I was like, oh, but you have to believe. Otherwise, what if believing is the thing that gets you there? And what if you don't believe, you don't get there? And it was pretty cool. It was really pretty wild to hear from this guy and have that confirmation. And the following weeks, it's just been very strange because, people, the whole film world has, reached out to me, and they're all saying how, oh, we had no idea, we didn't know. And I feel so dumbfounded because I don't know how anybody couldn't have known. And then there are so many people that I begged over and over and over. And, they came right out and they said they thought I was exaggerating. So, it is what it is. But I think that there's a really important part of the population that deals with this kind of thing. There have been some really wonderful people who have come out of the woodwork, and they've told me, that's how my husband died. That's how my wife died. They were 40, they were 35, they were 53. And, addiction is a horrible thing, and it's connected to trauma. Dean admitted to my son and I that from the time he was 9 until he was 16, he was abused very badly by this coach at Poly Prep. And he had never told anyone until he told us. And it was that trauma that he was so ashamed of and had so much self-hatred that he was trying to self-medicate and self-destruct over. And I said it to him just a couple weeks before he passed. I said, my goodness, if that guy wasn't already dead, I would hunt him down and I would kill him. And I would kill him the most slow, agonizing, horrific death that ever was known.
There's your next movie idea.
Yeah. Well, and like literally, I would have absolutely no remorse whatsoever when somebody like my dean was taken from this world by that guy's actions. That's ultimately what killed him. And it's awful. And that brings me to the whole other thing. Like, you know, a lot of what you talk about, like I don't make comments a lot of the time because, you know, it's more directed toward men. And I just feel like I'm opening myself up to, I don't know, some sort of criticism or something if like I'm a girl making a comment. So I just keep my mouth shut. Like with a lot of things in life, I've learned over the years, sometimes it's best to just like stay quiet. But, you know, I think one of the things that is true is that friends of mine are safe within my corral, and I never allow anyone to give any of my friends a hard time. They get, I'm the bouncer. I'm the bouncer. They get thrown out in a hurry. So that's why I introduce you as my longtime friend. And I expect my audience to give you the same exact respect and love that I give you. Oh, so thank you. Yeah. Well, but I have to say, you know, if the society that we live in were different, you wouldn't have to talk about the things that you do. And I agree with a lot of what you say. You know, I think that it's not just the fact that it's so complex. It's like an onion that's like existing in 5 different dimensions. So, you know, talk about different layers. It's like boom, 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 boom. But, you know, men are, and I made sure I brought up my son a very different way. I think it's very unfair that men are not allowed to have emotions. I think it's unfair that men are not allowed to stand up for themselves necessarily, because especially if they're white men, which my son is, you know, you have to suck it up. There's like so many rules and so many restrictions. You know, I've thought about it myself. It was like my biggest fear about reincarnation is if I ever would come back as a man. Like I would be terrified. That's awful. You know, just the same way that, you know, fighting is like actual fist fights and things like that are things that are expected if you're a man. It's like, that's not cool. That's not fair. That's not evolved. It's not, I mean, just the American perspective of culture and gender is so convoluted. And, you know, the way women are brought up of like always being the princess and the queen and this and that and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, if you want to be treated as a princess or a queen, then you should treat men as if they're princes and kings. And then it'll all, you know, everything will elevate. But, you know, the way people are being taught is that women have to act like they're superior and like the men are the serfs that are just there to like, you know, come and give them things and bow down to them. It's so, ugh.
You get it. You get it. Yeah. Yeah. I remember a couple years ago, I'm on the back deck, I don't know, in the sun. It was in the afternoon. You were somewhere at a pool. I think we were both like in bathing suits or something like that, texting back and forth to one another. And you had said to me that the night before that you and the kids literally had to carry him to the car and bring him to the emergency room. I will never forget that. Tell us about that situation.
Well, that was numerous times. I mean, every time he would get to a point, because when the kind of drinking that he did was not about, like I said, being violent or mean or lashing out or breaking things. Never, 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 never. it was all just about going into his cocoon and literally wanting to die. Like he even said to us a few years ago, he said, you know, I've lived a great life and I'm done. I don't need any more. And like the three of us were just like sobbing. We were in tears. We're like, but there's so much to live for. And he's like, I love you guys, but what more is there for me to say? So we didn't respect his wishes, and we would, you know, let him get to the point. Usually he would starve himself, and at a certain point he would get delirious. So then we would get the cops in, and the cops would work with us to convince him to go to an emergency room. Sometimes we would get a ambulance to come. There was a period of time, I think for 3 of the hospital visits, when we didn't have proper health insurance. So we were afraid to deal with an ambulance because it's like $1,000 or $1,500 or something. So we would carry him to the car and get him to the ambulance, to the emergency room, and then they would come and get him with a wheelchair. But yeah, I mean, we just did whatever we could, and you know, it's sad that it would have to get to that point. But you know, we would beg him for weeks prior. Got to get to the hospital. And he would say, no, never going to the hospital, never again, never doing that again. And the last time he was in September. He went to one hospital. They had him for 3 days, and he was bad still, and he wasn't eating, he wasn't walking. Last time he walked was April 2022. And you know, his blood pressure and heart rate were all messed up. His blood pressure was really low, but the heart rate was really high, and everything was just kind of like a mess. And after 3 days, they let him go. He wanted to leave. He insisted on it, and the hospital was like, well, we can't keep him, you know, against his will. And he said, well, can't the social worker come and talk to him? Somebody? They did all that. They were like, nope, he's fine. He can leave. I said, he's not fine. So anyway, we couldn't pay for medical transport, so we had them put him in the car. And as we drove home, he slipped down between the back seat and the driver's seat, and he was stuck. Then he was small. He was only 130 pounds, so he was like all compact, and we couldn't lift him out. So we went back to the hospital, and they yelled at us, and they said, he's already been discharged. You can't bring him back here. And we were like, well, what do we do? And they said, well, go to your fire department. So we went to the fire department. We're like, look, he's stuck. We don't know how to get him out. So they said, go to your house. We'll send over the paramedics. So they sent the paramedics, and the paramedics came. And before they took him out, they were like, okay, let's get some vitals on him. And his blood pressure was almost imperceptible. It was like 80/40. And his heart rate was 156. And they were like, how could that hospital have possibly discharged him? So they were like, look, we're going to bring him to a different hospital. So they brought him to this other hospital. And that hospital called me at midnight and said, well, look, you know, basically he said that he doesn't want to be here and we can't keep him against his will. And I was like, well, he's just going to come back here and die then. Like, you can't, like, you know, if somebody is not of sound mind and they're like, well, but we found him to be of sound mind. And I said, he weighs 130 pounds. You know, his blood pressure is super low. His heart rate's incredibly high. How can you possibly say that he's in his right mind? And they said, no, well, you know, by tomorrow afternoon, he's out of here. And so they arranged this transport, which I still owe tons of money for. And it was this special machine that had to go down these steps. It was like this weird, like, bulldozer kind of thing. I don't know. I can't describe it. I don't know what it's called. And hopefully I'll never see one again. So I don't want to know what it's called. And then basically he stayed there from September of 2022 until he passed on April 30th of this year. And I would bring him food. I had a doctor. There was a doctor's office that would come in and they would do blood work, take his vitals and everything. And every time I was like, okay, this is the time they're going to say, that's it, you got to go to the hospital. And every time they're like, okay, great, you're doing fine. And I would pull them aside and I'd be like, how can you say he's doing fine? This guy needs help. He needs help. They're just like, no, he doesn't want help and he's fine. What? I mean, I'm just so baffled by the whole thing. I just
What
don't
what
understand.
what did he ultimately pass away from?
Malnutrition.
Wow.
And I gave him food every single day. I mean, I have, a 21-year-old son who's 6'3" in the house. I make food constantly. There's always food. And I would, bring food down. I got all these to-go containers so that, like, if he wanted, he could just eat it slowly over time, like, because different things were starting to hurt his stomach. And when we found him on April 30th, and they took him away and they moved him and everything, underneath the bed, we found, like, it must be probably 200 or 300 pounds of food that he just hid.
Mm. Wow. So he was almost like on a hunger strike, so to speak.
Yep.
Wow. That is amazing. Well, I know you've been a good wife and a mother. How old are the kids now? I mean,
My son is about to turn 21, July
oh
20th.
boy.
And my
I'm in denial about that because I remember when they were just little things.
right, and my daughter's 19.
Wow.
Yep.
How are they handling all of this?
Good. I mean, I like to think of it this way. We started pre-grieving in about 2010.
Pre-grieving.
Yeah.
How do you define that? How do you define pre-grieving?
We would, he would check out for 5 days at a time, just not even moving. Most holidays were destroyed. We never had a holiday. The first actual holiday we had in a long time was Mother's Day, because the kids and I went out to a restaurant. We sat there and we laughed and we ate and we drank too much coffee. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But from the time they were really little, they were probably 4 and 5 when we started really getting into deep conversations about it. And, they would ask me, is he going to die? Is he going to die? And I told them, I said, I don't know. I mean, people can't hurt their bodies like this and survive. So, I think it's best that we, try to support him. We try to convince him to get better. But, there's only so much that we can do. Like their whole lives, I've been very open. I've never lied to them and said, oh, it's not what you think, or nothing like that. Oh, he's tired again. No, I never played those games. So luckily they don't have to deal with that kind of gaslighting or anything. That's not present. So, even one of the things that my daughter said was, this first year she goes to SDSU, San Diego State, and it was her freshman year. And she said, the whole time she was there, she was just so scared. Like, what's going to happen with daddy? What's going to happen with daddy? What's going to happen with daddy? And she said, we all have this feeling almost like whenever he would go into the hospital, especially if it was for like a week. The longest time he was in was like 5 weeks. And when he's in the hospital, it feels so like calm and relaxing, and just like we all have peace because we know he's being cared for properly. And in some ways we have that level of peace because we know he's at peace, because this is literally what he wanted for years. He started talking about this back in 2010. So that's a long time. It's a long time.
Yeah.
So 13 years of preparing ourselves. And he started having seizures in 2018. So that was 5 years ago. That's a long time to, realize just how bad it is. There were other medical issues that were going on, COPD, bladder cancer, heart issues, and they're all from the drinking and the smoking. So, we knew that we were on borrowed time. I think no matter how much you imagine it coming, the reality of it is completely different. It's just like, wait, what? Is that even possible? I mean, especially after the amount of times we've seen this guy in and out of the hospital, and going in far worse than he was 2 days before he passed.
Yeah.
Far worse. I mean, it's just, even now, like, I keep going over it and over it and over it in my head. I'm like, why did I not see it? Why did I not see it? Was I at fault in any way? And I've talked to my son, because, like, my son was right there with me for everything. So he saw it all too. And he's like, Mommy, there's no way we could have known. It definitely seemed like we had another month before we had to force him into a hospital. Definitely.
Yeah. What is everybody's view of alcohol right now? I mean, your daughter's at her first year of college, which of course is a big alcohol year for a lot of people. Your son is 21, which now in Jersey, he can buy alcohol. And how about your personal view of alcohol? Has it changed anything? Has this experience that's lasted decades, has it affected your opinion of alcohol?
No, it hasn't. Because I can enjoy, I met a friend at Moynihan Station today, and I had a glass of wine. And then I had a big glass of water, and then I had coffee.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to get a second glass even or anything. And then, I don't know when I'll have another drink, maybe in a week. I'm not sure.
Right.
But, so I think it all has to do with the personality. I mean, it's like if, that show, My 600-Pound Life.
Yeah.
We used to watch that all the time. My daughter and I, we called it the Fat People Show. Sorry, I hope that's not offensive. But it's about addiction. So, and while, I can have a slice of pizza, and I might not eat the whole thing because it's like, that doesn't feel too good in my belly. It's like dough and bleh. But, these people will get pizza and they'll eat the entire thing, rolling it up and stuffing it in their mouths. So, it doesn't change my opinion about pizza.
Right.
So, and I feel the same way about alcohol. And also I'm like, I've never been into hard alcohol. I'm a red wine girl exclusively. And, one good glass of red wine and I'm fine. And my daughter, she's the same way. And my son just has no interest in alcohol at all. Not at all. In high school, because we are in Jersey and we are a suburb of New York City, the kids here, they drink. So, I thought, okay, well, it's best that my kids go through that learning while they're under my safe, arms of love that can, talk to them and make them realize, what's going on. And they both, because I never punished them or screamed or went nuts. It was just like, guys, look at your dad. Come on. You've got the genes for this. And you really don't want to play around with that.
Yeah.
They get it. So, I think I'm a big believer in moderation. Like, for example, okay, with a glass of red wine, like if I go to a film festival and I have a glass of red wine, I might have a cigarette too. But then I don't have a cigarette every day or, every month even. It's just like the way some people will smoke a pipe or a cigar or something like that.
Right.
And I think, all that kind of stuff, everything is good in moderation. It's like when you start putting all these rules and making this is evil and that's evil. And here, wait, my dog needs me to pick him up. Sorry. It's the labels that we put on things that make them a certain way.
Yeah. Is there an overreaching message for the audience tonight? Is there a couple things that people can extract from your story that you think would be important?
Yeah. All addiction is not the same. And a lot of times what somebody really does need is just someone to hold their hand and be there for them. And even if they're on a path of self-destruction that has no turning back, the right thing to do sometimes is to just hold space for them while they do what they are intending on doing. It's really important to realize that it's not up to you. It's up to the individual.
Yeah.
And also, we need to be able to look at addiction in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
We need to look at it in a different way. It needs to be looked at, I don't think as a disease like they talk about so much as it is about a underlying trauma.
Mm.
I think there's always some sort of underlying trauma. And if there is not trauma,
Interesting.
because I don't have any, at least none that I know of, none that is active in my system, any kind of trauma that has led me to have any kind of addictive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with both my kids. Like just about everything in the world, they could take it or leave it. But over and over again, my 600-pound life, not one of those people has not been sexually assaulted. Every single one of them. It's really fascinating. And I think it's really important to make people feel that it's normal to reveal the things that they label as dark, because it's that whole concept of like, if it doesn't come out, it stays in. And what does it do? It gets you sick. It creates cancer. It creates addiction.
Yeah. Deborah, it's funny. I had a guy on a couple weeks ago talk about porn addiction, and I had no idea that it goes as deep as it does. And it's not just like a bunch of horny guys watching sex videos. What he revealed after dealing with hundreds of guys that are dealing with this addiction, he says it's got nothing to do with sexuality. It's got nothing to do with testosterone. It's got nothing to do with being horny. He says it has everything to do with healing of trauma.
Really?
Yeah. And it's interesting how addiction has its roots in trauma. And that's consistent with what you said about your husband.
Yep. To me, but there needs to be like more attention given to that aspect. And, I think it's important for mental health to go a little deeper. Like people say, oh, it's suicide awareness, it's this or that. It should be like trauma awareness. Because that's the deeper thing. And that's the thing that leads to suicidal tendencies.
Do you think that, I mean, there's the kind of people who just put a gun to their head or swallow a bottle of pills, and then there's people who kill themselves over a 20-year period. It's almost like they're putting suicide on an IV drip. It seems like.
Absolutely. I agree with that completely. Absolutely. I think that's what we witness, to be perfectly honest. My daughter even said that every time he went to the hospital, when he came out, it was like there was something else that wasn't there.
Wow. Now, how are you dealing with all of this?
Up and down. Like, I had a couple, like when I took the train into the city, and when I got off the train, I thought to myself, my gosh, for the 10 years that we lived in New Jersey together, he didn't once take the train with me into the city. Not once. And then I realized, I was like, wow, Moynihan Station, he never saw that firsthand. I showed it to him. I shot in Moynihan for my most recent film, and I showed him the footage, and he was like, wow, that's what it looks like? That's so beautiful. But walking through it, I just thought to myself, my gosh, he'll never see this. And, there's so many little things, like, I've been like decluttering and cleaning and just going through pictures and just so many things, and realizing another thing that I've been doing, I've been looking at my journals for the entire last 20 years and seeing just how prevalent this was. Like there's that tendency to be like, oh, it was just the last 6 years. No, it was It was pretty present, pretty often, right out of the
Wow.
gate. And I was, in that beautiful pink bubble of having new babies and all the responsibility for them and, you know, taking them to playgrounds and having fun. And, that
Mm.
distracted me nicely.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah. So
Let, let,
it's a
let me
rough
ask you
moment.
this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this as an artist, okay? You're an actress, a model, a producer, a director, a creative person. You're always moving. And you've been a mother for 2 decades and a wife for 2 decades. How has this trauma, or how will this trauma make its way to your art? That's
Oh,
that's a weird question.
no, it's already, there was a script that I started about 4 weeks before he passed called Release.
Mhm.
And it's actually a vampire story that's related to addiction.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Vampires and addiction. Holy
Yeah.
cow.
Yeah. Really dark horror film. And I feel even more inspired after what I know now. And I mean, I'm very weird. I accept that I'm weird and I like being weird. So, I get messages when I'm out walking dogs or I'm out in nature or taking a shower. And I know they're directly from him, about like, oh, remember this, use this, remember this. So I think it'll be a really interesting story. And I think it'll be really cathartic. And the craziest part of all of this is in the last 4 weeks, I've been able to actually get back in touch with people that I'd self-isolated, especially the last 10 years. I was just like, no, I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to go to this party. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to meet this person for coffee. I'm not like, just no, 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 no. Because first of all, I felt ashamed. I felt like constantly depressed. I felt like, there was something wrong with me and I didn't want anybody to even like look at me. And so I think it's like what Dean said. I think he knew on some level that, life is about to open up completely. Because like I've lived with this, I don't want to call it jail because then it sounds like I'm a victim and I'm not. I chose to be here. So it's like he was in prison and I was sitting right there holding his hand through the bars. That's what it's like. And now he's not in jail anymore.
Mhm.
So my job is finished with that. Like that chapter is complete. Like I did everything that I could possibly do. There was nothing else,
Yeah.
anything legal that I could do. And I even like, I had thought many times, like he would scream and yell and beg if I didn't get the vodka and the cigarettes. So then I'd finally do it. And then other days I'd be like, no, that's it. We're cutting back. You can't. So he would just order it on his phone from Drizzly. And then,
Mm.
people would say, well, why don't you take his phone away? I'm like, but that's imprisonment. That's illegal. Like, I can't take away his only form of communication with the outside world.
Mm.
So it was very, this constant stress and
Mm.
fear and what's next. And, I can't leave for too long because what if he needs food? What if he needs this? What if he needs that? I want to be able to like, what if he like falls out of the bed? Or what if he like, sets himself on fire by accident? I had a friend that did that.
Mm.
How could I possibly live? It's going to be a very interesting thing. The fact that I'm actually hoping to go to the Tribeca Film Festival, like that hasn't happened to me in 20 years, that I'm excited to go do anything because I'm terrified usually. But now I'm like, I'm good. Let's go do stuff. Let's get out, watch movies, talk to people, be part of the world. So, and thank you for having me on because I really do want to find a way to open up some sort of forum where people are able to talk about this. So many people, like it's just shocking to me how many people have come forward and told me that this is how their dad died, their mom died, their husband, their wife, their whatever, and they were all young, and they were just found, they were dead in their sleep, or they had a heart attack because they drank too much. And I'm like, why is it that I'm just now hearing about this? Like, these stories, I could have really, it could have helped me to hear about this earlier so that I could have been better prepared. I honestly did not think that he was able to die from it because he'd been through so much at this point. Like, I know if I did what he did, I would have been dead like 17 years ago. There's just no way. My body would have just said, nope, sorry, you're done.
Yeah.
Lights out, finished.
Yeah.
So, it just, I think it's going to be a very interesting time. And I also found already somebody tried something interesting on me. Because I make erotic thrillers. I'm good at it. And I think as a female director, I think it's really important to do it because, people can't like roll their eyes the same way as if it was a guy doing it and be like, oh, you just wanted to see sex. It's like, no, like I actually film this stuff in a really cool and artistic way. And anybody that's seen any of my stuff knows that. So this dude, I asked him if he had seen my latest film, and he was like, well, no, because I saw the trailer, and I was just like, oh, it's another one of those. And I'm like, excuse me? And normally, like, I would have gone to Dean, I'd be like, you know what he said? And can you believe that? And oh my, what an asshole. And I don't ever want to talk to him again. But instead, I was like, no, Dean's not here. What would Dean say? And I was like, like the warrior queen has come out to play. And it's like, don't frickin' cross me, because like I have Dean's spirit in me now, and I know how to stand up for myself, and I absolutely have no fear. Like the scariest thing that I could have ever imagined happening, oh God, please don't challenge me on that one, God, has happened. This was the scariest thing that this is on the same level as 9/11. We experienced that together. We were 5 blocks from the towers when heard the plane fly overhead and everything. This is exactly that same reaction. Exactly. It's identical.
Yeah. There's stages of grief and loss. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross probably put them together over 50 years ago. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. A lot of that is for sudden death. What about death that happens over a long period of time? What stage of responding to this loss do you think that you're at now?
I've thought about this a lot because I've read all that stuff too. Years ago, I actually a psychic that I had a consultation with told me that I should get this book, and it was called oh my gosh, The Wild Edge of Sorrow. And it's like about, preparing for the death of a loved one. And, there's all that stuff in it. And while those are the different stages of grief, it doesn't go in a linear fashion. They pop up like it's
A cycle.
Yeah, exactly. So while I had been through a lot of them already, some of them are resurfacing in different places. Some of them have gone through a transformation. So like my anger is no longer directed at him or at the alcohol. It's just directed at like, the situation that he came from that created that thing in him. So, everything evolves. And I would imagine that this is probably similar to when somebody does have something like, a long-term illness, like some sort of cancer or something like that. But different in that it was absolutely stoppable with one decision. Unlike, if somebody has cancer, they can't suddenly just decide like, okay, that's it. No more cancer. I'm done.
Yeah.
And that part, like, it doesn't make me angry anymore. It used to a lot. It just baffles me. Like how I just love the world so much. I love just even sunshine in the morning. I love rain. I love mud. I mean, I just love everything. I love bugs, worms. You know,
Life.
yeah,
Life.
life is just
Yeah.
such a, I mean, it even makes my mouth water to think about it. And
Yeah.
how anybody wouldn't have that appreciation. I can't. I'm just dumbfounded. I'm just completely dumbfounded. So I feel like now that I don't have to try to convince somebody else, you know, about how amazing life is, I'm just going to try to embrace every damn second I possibly can, because, you know, there were a lot of moments that I spent just isolating, sheltering, being quiet, being in the dark, being sad, being depressed. And now I need to, like, you know, be with people, be in the world, drink coffee, listen to music, walk around outside, you know. I
Tonight you're going to go to sleep tonight. Your head's going to hit the pillow. You're going to reach over, turn out the light. How long will it take you to fall asleep tonight?
well, I have a lot of little dogs. So basically it's the same thing. I lay down and I think to myself, oh my gosh, I'm never going to go to sleep. I'm never going to go to sleep. And one by one, the doggies come and they're like, hey, mommy, hey, mommy. And they get all cuddled on top of me. And, you know, they're all only like 5 pounds each, but you get 11 of them on you. And next thing you know, you're being weighed down by like 50 pounds of dog. So it's like my, one of those weighted blankets, except it's
Yeah,
alive.
right.
And I'm usually out within like 10 minutes, I think.
Okay.
And
And then,
that's the
and
other
then
thing.
when you wake up, will you wake up to an alarm or just wake up naturally tomorrow?
I tend to wake up. The guy, the channeler guy, said that he actually passed at 4:47 in the morning, and every single day I wake up at 4:46, and then I just connect with the love that I have in my heart, and I send him love, and I cuddle down with my doggies and close my eyes and make myself just go back to sleep.
Right. Do you drink coffee?
Oh, not only do I drink coffee, I have a special thing that I started doing about 5 years ago, where I have a swell bottle, you know, big swell bottle, like it's like
Yeah.
this big, like probably a quart, nah, a half a quart. I don't know. It's a lot of coffee, but I make
Yeah.
it the night before, and I have it on my bedside table because I like to pretend. I like to pretend that I'm waking up in a hotel and room service had it delivered. I told you I'm weird. I play all kinds of weird games with myself to, like, you know, bring joy to life.
Yeah. That's great. What is the message for the audience? That there might be two types of people hiding in this audience. The first type is someone who's actually going through what your husband went through, who might be watching this, and the other type might be a loved one of somebody who is going through this kind of addiction. Give a message to both of those people.
For somebody going through it, I would beg you to examine your life, root out what the trauma is that you're trying to self-medicate from, and talk to somebody you trust, or even just like one of those like anonymous lines, something, but just get it out. Journal it and burn it, whatever, but get it out. Cry over it, scream into a pillow, do whatever you have to do, but don't keep it inside, because it will kill you. And to the person dealing with the person that has this issue, the most important thing you can do is take care of yourself and stay in a place of love and acceptance for the other person, even when crazy things are said that don't make any sense. Just take a deep breath, realize that it's not the person talking to you, it's the addiction, it's the demon that is trying to kill that person, that's trying to suck them into the vortex because of the trauma. and do what is right for you. Don't do things because somebody else tells you. If a family member, a friend, whatever tells you that they don't want to talk to you anymore because you won't write this person off, you write that person off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, do what you need to do. Only you know. And the relationship that you have with that person is, I believe these are karmic bonds that some of us are just, these are contracts that we had long before we got here, and we got to go through them. And, I know that we had that. And I am glad. I am really glad that I did not walk away.
Okay. Well, it's been a month. Tomorrow will be exactly 1 month since this happened. What are your reflections on 1 month without him here?
I think it's not going to really feel real until I get to about 100 days. Because I've been in this place before, when there was one time he was in a nursing facility after the hospital so that they could get him eating and walking again. And so he was away for 5 weeks on that stint. That was in 2021. Yeah, 2021. And it just felt very peaceful and hopeful. And so I'm in that same place. Like, I think it hasn't really sunken in. And I think when it's going to really sink in, we're doing a celebration of life at the end of June with a bunch of people, friends, and that kind of thing. And I'm scared because I think it's going to become very real then. Like, I haven't even, the funeral home hasn't given me back the ashes. They wanted to gift my daughter and I this jewelry made out of the ashes, which is pretty remarkable. They're just so sweet to be holding us that way. But even something like that, like, it just feels like he might just be somewhere else, and it's just not real yet. And the woman that I am friends with, that I met today in Moynihan, she had lost her husband. It was a really good friend of mine back in the 90s. She lost him in January of 2020. And she said to me, and she's a strong female director, really cool woman. And she said, she first looked at this and she was like, okay, well, I'm going to just get through this. I'm going to get through it. And she did, pour herself into her work. And she said, but that whole first year, it was rough. It was really rough. And she said, just like prepare yourself, because, there's going to be things that come out of nowhere and I mean, this has already happened where I want to text him. Like, something crazy happens and I'm like, oh, Dean. And I go to text and I'm like, oh. But a couple of times I just did it anyway, just so that I could feel that I shared it with him.
Yeah, I think that's good for your mental health, and who knows, maybe he really is receiving those texts, right?
I think he is.
Yeah.
We had a psychic connection. We always had this thing back when he was still working. Because there's a million ways you can get to our house from Manhattan. And inevitably, like, we'd be talking to each other on the phone, and then next thing you know, we're driving toward each other, and we're like, hey. Like, we had that kind of synchronicity all the time. Or one of us would see something on TV and the other one would be like, I just saw something about that on Facebook, and screenshot it and send it. I mean, it's like we just had these connections. So there's been all kinds of little signs and music and things and dreams. I mean, every day I hear from him, every day. And I don't ever expect that to end. I've even got, I've got a lot of people that are on the other side that I hear from in different ways. But this was such a strong connection. And we have the kids together. We've got all these animals together. I think he'll always be part of my life, no matter what. I mean, even, with the way I do my art and the way I stand up for myself, I'm going to be stronger for both of us because of what I've been through.
Well, I don't want to keep you anymore. Just want to give you support, let you
Thank
know
you.
that we love you on this end. I love you, and we will be here for you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us tonight, and reach out anytime. And if there's any breakthroughs or anything, let me know, and I'll pass it on to the audience, because you've touched all of our hearts tonight. You really did.
Thank you so much. I hope in my fantasy, one person has heard this and it has helped them. Really, because I searched all over YouTube looking for something like this situation and I couldn't find it. So I just pray so hard somebody is going to get that little bit of acknowledgement, and they're more than welcome to reach out to me privately. Absolutely. Anyway, I will be there to help anybody get through this.
Wonderful.
No matter
Wonderful.
what side you're on, whether you're the drinker or the person that loves the drinker, or whatever substance it is, it's all the same shit.
And if I know people struggling who I think that you could help with your unique way of helping, I will send them into your direction.
Great. Please do. Yes, absolutely. I'm here for the world.
All righty. My sweet Deborah, have a great night, and thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, George.
Okay, good night.
Bye.
Well, that was quite the conversation, wasn't it? And I really felt it when I had heard that he had passed. And I hope you benefited from that conversation that we had. And what was the one thing, let me ask the audience, what was the one thing that she said that resonated with you? If you could put that in the chat, let me know what resonated with you that she said. What did you learn about your situation or yourself that you didn't know before this? Peg, thank you for saying that, and it was my pleasure. And I like to think that when I have people on, that there's a purpose behind it. I like to think that whatever I do in life has a purpose, and I hope that this had a good purpose tonight and that it moved people. Thea, you shared some things tonight about your personal life, because we haven't seen you in a while. And then you sharing some of the things that you did. I wasn't aware of that. So our heart goes out to you as well. And feel free to communicate that stuff with me privately if you'd like. Francis says, I know that addiction is definitely the result of severe trauma. True. I'm not going to erase this live stream, delete this live stream like I do many others. This will stay up because I think it's very helpful for people. And there's people that are dealing with this kind of situation, the same exact situation, and they don't know who to turn to. And I think she answered a lot of questions for a lot of people tonight. So this will stay up after I leave here tonight. Any other questions or comments about? Francis says, I had to take care of an abusive person the last 2 years of his life, and now I know I did the right thing. Yep. Rob Simmons says, the love of nature. Thea says, thank you, George. You are welcome, Thea. Terry says, I lost my brother, my only sibling, a number of years ago. He was an alcoholic. He developed a sudden serious illness, couldn't handle the treatment, had a heart attack, gone within a week. Okay. Peg Bell adds, great love is underrated by those who have never experienced its strength and caring no matter what. Zan Morris says it blew me away that she stuck with him through it all. She could have kicked him to the curb and didn't, and that takes real strength. Thea says, I've been away for the reason of what I'm going through. Francis says, thank you so much, George. I'm a recent widow, and I needed this. You are welcome. Tonight's broadcast is called Life, Love, and Loss. And Deborah was an appropriate first guest on this series that we're doing. And for the pop culture crowd who might have tuned in, like I get these stats for this video after I end it, and it will tell me that who popped in, for how long they popped in for, and whatever. And for a lot of people, this is a heavy topic. This is not for everybody. This is not pop culture. This is not manosphere, red pill. This is not dating. This is not any of the stuff that I usually talk about. You know, like in the very beginning, I would encourage you to watch this from the very beginning, because Deborah has been following me for years. Imagine a woman follows me on social media. Can you imagine that? And what she said in the beginning was right, how she doesn't know how men do this. with what she says, all these American bitches, which I thought was kind of funny. She gets it. She gets it. Canadian Combat says it was definitely a nice little stream for sure. Puts in perspective that life can be taken from you, so enjoy the moment while it's there. Yes, that is true. Yeah. Francis says, I just started following you a week ago. Thank you. I hope I don't let you down. Zan says, I definitely will have to watch the whole video. I only caught a little bit. Yeah, there's a lot here. There's a lot here. And it's actually, you know, it's interesting. I have my little notebook right here, and I probably will watch this video again and take notes and make some bullet points to be able to teach in the future and use Deborah as a case study. She so articulately shared what she was going through. She didn't have to share the details. I was aware of the bigger picture, but I was not aware of the details. And I was communicating with her about some of this stuff at least 2 years ago. And I really, truly think that I think this was good for her, number one. And number two, I think it was good for you to hear this. Deborah's a young woman, lost her husband. And how does a young woman with 2 children deal with this? Francis says, you've made me realize I'm open to marriage again. Okay, that's good. That's good. It took me almost 20 years to be open to marriage after having a crappy divorce. So, yeah. Terry says, it takes very special love and strength to care through such trauma. I believe that to be true. Well, you've been a great audience. Give your love and support to Deborah. She's in North Jersey. You can see Manhattan from her house. And she's active as an actress, producer, and director. And just feel free to check her out and her work and give her support. She does erotic thrillers, and she's been on several mainstream network shows like NCIS and Law and Order and this kind of stuff. And So we just want to give her love and support as she goes through this. And I think it's like she said, it's going to take a few months before it hits her. You know, tomorrow is 30 days that her husband, you know, passed away. And I was really taken back that he died of malnutrition and not alcoholism, so to speak. I know malnutrition, being undernourished, is part of alcoholism. I thought he might have died from liver failure or something like that, but that really opened my eyes up, and that there was a couple 100 pounds of food underneath his bed that he would hide. She'd bring him food and he would just put it under the bed. So, yeah. Claire says she believed in herself and her relationship and didn't fall for the others' criticism, but continued helping him. Yeah. Yeah. It's going to take 4 to 6 months to set in. Yeah, that's true. All right. I'm glad I had something of value other than just a bunch of opinions to give you tonight. And I'm glad you hung in there. And I know a lot of people popped in and popped out. It wasn't like their thing. It wasn't, you know, it's not a popular topic with a lot of people, but for those that were here, you got something from it. And I hope to have more shows like this in the future that you can learn from. So again, with all of the things that you had to watch on YouTube, you chose to spend a few minutes with me. And for that, I am thankful. I love you, and I'll see you soon.